CSIS 1430 is filmed before a live studio audience.
So this is it. It's the last day. Class is over. It is sad. I'm going to miss you guys. Well, yeah, you're going to be in 2440, right? Yeah, you too, right? Yeah, good. So the goal today, let's find out how useful this class really was, okay? So we're going to look at three things here, hopefully. Thing number one, let's look at how to find jobs online. And I don't mean to find jobs that are online jobs. I mean how to use online to find a job. And that seems simple enough, right? Google it, right? Well, there's a little bit more to it than that. How to research job skills, salaries, like in other words, if I have these skills, what kind of jobs can I get, right? And then learn how to stay current with all this stuff, okay? So we're gonna look at all those. First thing I want to show you is this. This was put out a couple years ago, and it's predicting up through 2022. Now, I will say that when they made this chart, COVID wasn't a thing, right? They didn't know about that. So this might be slightly different now, but you're gonna find in a minute when we start looking at salaries, they're actually higher now than they were when this chart was made, which I think it's because of COVID, everything went virtual, right? So companies like Zoom and all these technology companies are booming now. And so I think we're gonna see a lot of that. And this is a web class, right? But this is the basic idea. This is just STEM jobs, right? Science, technology, engineering, and math. And you'll see in the pie chart on the left, the majority of it is computing, right? Well, what's computing? Well, it's on the right, system analysis, software development, and all these other things listed on the right. Where do we fall into that category? Yeah, software development, right? Web programming is in that category, right? So take a look at this. I found this interesting. If you look at all the components of STEM, right? Remember, STEM is just an acronym for science, technology, engineering, and math. Look at this Venn diagram. Technology is in all of those things. It's in the science part of the STEM. It's in the E, the engineering. It's in the M. T is in all of those. And right there at the bottom of that white section in the center, software and web developer, okay? So this is where we're at. This field you guys are studying right now, and even if you don't become web developers, which I'll be sad if you don't, but even if you don't and you do some other kind of development, you're in that Venn diagram right in the center, right? Math uses it, engineering uses it, science uses it. So you can be in any field. That's the beauty of this job or this work. Even forget about this diagram. I mean, you could work at a bank and be the programmer for the bank. You could work at like a landscaping company. You could work anywhere and do this kind of stuff. It's everywhere. So here's sort of a breakdown of a lot of the web technologies, okay? So look at the left-hand side and you can see the breakdown of Android and Java developers and front end and machine learning, all these different things. But look on the right where the bigger pieces of the pie chart are. Full stack and full stack developer. I'm not entirely sure the distinction between full stack versus full stack developer. I'm not sure what the difference between those two are, but the two of them combined take up a quarter of the graph. That's 25% of the graph right there, okay? WordPress is surprisingly huge, 10% almost. But what is full stack? It's front end and back end, that's all it is. Well, you guys have been introduced to the three main foundations of front end, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. The back end, that's PHP, that's 2440 you guys are going to be taking next semester. It's also databases, okay? Which we don't get into in this class, but we touch on it in 2440 and also take 1550 from me, right? And that's all database, okay? So, but the point is this, the web stuff is a large chunk of this world that we're in, okay? There's Android apps and Android developers and this kind of stuff and just plain old front end, you know, but the majority of the work out there is you need to have both. WordPress is a good example. Anybody that does WordPress stuff, you're doing front and back end stuff, for sure. Okay, so let's take a look at some of these different careers here that were in that part of that pie chart that we expanded that showed on the right all the different types of jobs. So a software developer. If you're going to be a software developer, you need an intermediate knowledge of at least one of these languages here. Well, there's JavaScript right at the end, right? I'd say that right now, if this class was your only exposure to JavaScript, then your knowledge level is somewhere between the end of the beginner scale and the beginning of the intermediate scale. You're somewhere in that range, I would say. Take 2470, that's advanced JavaScript, and you'll be good, right? Also, we get into some advanced topics of JavaScript in 2440. The last 3 or 4, maybe the last 5 or 6 lectures of that class are JavaScript stuff. So, but that's a huge, important language in the world today. Also, you need a knowledge of basic debugging techniques, right? Which we've looked at some of that. If it's JavaScript, the number one thing, leave the console open. Yeah, that's the number one thing for JavaScript. But you've done other things where you comment out this line of code and maybe hard code this thing, and then once you get it working, then start swapping it out for variables, those types of things. Basic logic, and all that means in our world, if statements, switches, that kind of stuff, that kind of thing. To be able to think through the things that you're trying to solve, whatever problem you're trying to solve. The fourth bullet point there is just about communication, which is huge in all jobs, but in this job in particular, it's crazy. If you don't have good communication skills, here's what will happen to you, I guarantee it. You'll build the project or whatever it is they wanted. You submit it and you say, here you go, here's your thing that you wanted. And the first thing they'll say is, well, does it do this? And you're going to say, no, because you didn't tell me to make it do that, right? You have to have very detailed, annoying conversations with people to get where you need to be. And this is not a joke. My nickname, because of the way I made people communicate with me to get the projects done that I was building for them, my nickname was Human Hater. That's actually what they called me. I started signing my emails HH at the bottom, and it was all in fun. Nobody really hated me or anything like that. But the reason I got that nickname was because if it was not written down, it did not happen. So if I'm on my way to go get a soda or something, and you stop me in the hallway and start telling me about a project, I would immediately say, send me an email. And they're like, what are you talking about? I can just tell you right now. I'm like, no, you want doc? I'm going to the bathroom right now, right? When I come out, I forgot that we even talked, right? So you'll send me an email. What, you don't like talking to the humans, right? That's where the Human Hater thing came in. But it was all documented. Everything was written down. And the other thing was, I had multiple developers working for me. And too often people would go directly to the developers and say, hey, can you do this or can you do that? I'm like, you're telling the .NET guy to do something with the database. He doesn't know about the database, right? Or you're telling the database guy to fix a PHP problem, right? Come to me, direct everything through me. And I made the owner of the company do that. He had to come to me. He was not allowed to talk to the other guys. And so I would filter everything. And I'd say, you leave my team alone. They're working on what you want. And so I'd get the information. Then once a week, I'd meet with each one of them individually. And I'd say, okay, here's what you're working on this week and nothing else. If somebody knocks on your door, tell them to go away. Go see Jeff, right? And I protected them from that. You have to be careful of that because if you have too many people telling you what to do, nothing gets done. And that's exactly what was going on when I took over the department. Nothing was getting done. Anyway, long story short, point is communication is everything. It got to the point where in a meeting, they would start just, diarrhea of the mouth, vomiting out everything that they wanted me to do in this program. And I'd be like, whoa, slow down. This one thing over here that you want, tell me what you mean by that, right? And one of my favorite things to say to people, I would say, let's say I'm talking to you, Tucker, and I'd say, tell me what you mean by that. And then Wyatt will jump in and say, well, he means this. And I'll say, okay, Wyatt, that's what you think he means. I want to know what he thinks he means, right? I say that all the time to people because other people are trying to chime in, trying to clarify what's in your brain. I'm like, no, I want to hear it right from the horse's mouth, right? Tell me what you want, and then I'm going to ask you a dozen questions about it. So when you want this scenario, do you mean, what about if this happens? Well, what about if that happens? What if this happens? Right? You got to be really good at that kind of stuff. Okay, off the soapbox, Jeff. Basic algebra. You're going to see quickly when you guys take 2430 how important that skill is. Okay, 2430 is discrete structures, which I think you guys are supposed to take. Last thing down there, basic system administration and familiarity with common operating systems. All that means is you know your way around a computer, right? All too often you'll have somebody that gets on a computer, they download a file off of a website or something, and then they can't find it. Like, where did it go? You have to know that kind of stuff, right? How to change where it does download, right? Go into your browser and change it. You got to know just basic stuff like that. And you need to kind of know your way around a Mac as well as a PC, and even a little bit on a Linux box, right? Especially if you're going to get into database stuff, you're going to definitely want to know your way around a Linux box. So what we have here on the left is actually a link, and then the PDF that you guys can get to inside the lecture notes. These are links that you can click on. That's what the software developer average or median price was, or not price, but you know what I mean, salary, as of about 2 years ago. I left the number in there because when you click on it, it takes you to the real number. And I like having the old number in there for history's sake, because when we click on it, you're going to see it's actually better right now. All right, so let's go there. So you can see right here, it's 71,000, almost 72, compared to 69 something on the slide. So this is a decent bump. This is where it is right now. So this site we're on is called Payscale.com, and this is a really good site, but you have to jump through a bunch of hoops to get here, and sometimes you have to create an account, and you're going to see as we go along today, all of a sudden it's going to not let us use the site. It's going to make me create an account or log in or something. So we'll have to deal with that when it comes up. So I would recommend, though, use the links in the PowerPoint or in the PDF rather than going here directly to Payscale.com, because it'll be easier and faster. Also in the YouTube description, I've put all the links for everything that we're looking at today that's in the PowerPoint. So let's look at what's going on this site here. There's the average salary, okay? And then down here, for example, this tells you kind of the breakdown of how this can work, just on average across the industry, right? So the salary is typically in this range. Sometimes you can get bonuses up to 11,000 bucks. I think that's probably annually. Profit sharing, commission. Some of these jobs you're working a little bit on commission. Total pay is right in this range, 50 to 109. Down here, what is a software developer? Read all about it. We're not going to go through that here, but go here and check it out. Here's some companies that have a position called software developer and what their average pay is. So GM, 72K. IBM is 91,000. Then you go down to the bigger companies like Microsoft and Amazon. We're talking, six figures here. Okay. Over here on the left, or sorry, on the right, you will see this. Different skills can affect your salary. Below are the most popular skills and their effect on salary. So I'm not 100% sure what this means. To me, it makes sense that if you have Python under your belt, then you can earn 4% more than your competitors. I'm not sure what it means though over here. What if you have .NET, you make less money than your competitors? What does that mean? But there's all kinds of data on here, like this one up here. 36% of people in this industry are in their later part of their career. 15% are in the middle part, and so forth. I'm not sure what the up and down means on these in this case. Again, my intent isn't to teach you how the site works, just to kind of show you that it exists and what's there. This one's kind of cool. A couple things here. On the right, it tells you the breakdown of the gender and who's in the industry. Over the past few years, I've been watching this number here increase, and it's pretty common now that more and more my programming classes, the ratio of females is larger than it's been in the past years, and so it's kind of tracking with what I'm seeing here on this site. This shows you the benefits that are typical. Who knows what the percentages mean, right? You're gonna have to dig around the site to figure out what they're talking about there. This is a cool little thing that shows you sort of the typical career path that you might take as a software developer, and you can click on these and see more information about them. Then down here are actual jobs right now in this area that are hiring for this specific job. And if you keep scrolling down, some of the popular skills that software developers have. Look at number one there, JavaScript, right? It's huge. JavaScript has been one of the best, most flexible with the times languages out there. It's grown, and it started out like kind of yucky and gross, but now it's really good and really powerful, and it's getting better every year. And this is cool down here. What's the pay by experience level, right? So entry level is 62,000. That's a lot. Now, what is entry level, right? Entry level could, depending on different things, but it could mean a bachelor's degree. It could mean an associate's degree with some experience. It could mean right out of school. So what is entry level is a little bit in flux, right? But, you know, a couple years in the job, you're already almost at 70K, right? Different cities pay different, you know, 28% higher if you're in Seattle, Washington. New York's 25% higher, and so on. And here's again that graph that's showing you what level, you know, 11% of the people in this industry, based on 22,000 people here, 11% are entry level. That's, you know, that's a fair amount. And then there's early career. Well, that's 60%, right? So that's basically you guys. That 60% plus that 11%, 70% of the job market is you guys, brand new, right? So this is good. And then here's some related jobs. You can click on all those, right? So we're going to click on a couple more pages that look like this, but the data will be a little different. Some of them don't have this little wheel down here, but there's a lot of cool stuff on these pages here, okay? So that's a software developer. Here's a database administrator, which we can just talk about for a second since this isn't a database class. But notice here, communication skills, right? Knowledge of database theory, all the obvious stuff if you're going to be in the database world. The typical salary is $71,000 or $74,000. That's $3,000 more than the slide shows. And again, you can scroll through and see all those things we just looked at on that previous one if you want to, right? And again, here's the path and all kinds of cool stuff. Network administrator. Now this one's one of the lower paying ones. So a network administrator, you're the person that's out there running cables. You're out there making sure the computers are working, making sure everything's connected. It's a lot of physical work that I don't want to do. All right, but you'll notice here that you need, look at almost the last bullet point right here. This is a very common thing that you're going to need in just about every job. MySQL. Obviously, as a database person, you would need it. With full stack, you definitely need it. So even though this is the web class, I want to point that out because you're going to see that everywhere. You need that for everything. We click on that, it's going to take us to the Payscale page, and the new amount is 61. So it's up a little bit as well. To me, that one should be much higher right now because that's the person that's like making sure Zoom is working, right? They're making sure that they're the one that's at the company still making sure that everything's working even though the building's empty, right? They're the Zoom technician on site they don't work for Zoom, but they're the person that makes sure that we can actually connect to each other, right? And so if you're doing, like, we use Zoom here on the campus all the time. Or I'll be sitting in my office and having a meeting. Well, we have a network person that makes sure that can happen, you know. All right, so next one, systems analyst, right? And again, there it is, SQL. You need that everywhere. Critical thinking, logic, this kind of stuff, this problem solving in general, and writing computer programs for various purposes, right? It's not language specific. You just write code to solve a problem. Well, you can do that in just about any language. So it's 63 on here, and it's a little bit more on the website here, 66, right? 3,000 more. Cybersecurity, there's where the money's at right there. And I'm surprised it doesn't say anything about SQL on here, because it should, definitely. But look what's required here. Solid grounding in IT fundamentals, right? That's just understanding just stuff, right? Computer stuff, right? Coding skills. C, C++, and Java, those are all kind of in one category. They're very much similar. But then you got PHP, Perl, Ruby, and Python. You've heard of Perl probably, and Python for sure. I'm sure you guys have heard of Python. Ruby and Perl are not as well known anymore. We're going to talk a little bit about more Ruby here in a minute, and Perl, but those PHP is web technology, right? Perl and Ruby is also web technology. Perl and Python are used in the web, but they're not, I wouldn't categorize them as web technology. But cybersecurity, let's take a look at what's going on now for that. It's about the same basically, which is a little interesting to me because right now with COVID and everything, I would think that would be a lot more, you know, that people are doing everything and they want everything to be secure. This job is what makes it to where you can't get hacked or prevents hacking or, you know, that kind of stuff. There's that bottom bullet point there though, the oral, written, and communication skills, right? Always critical. What this is, these links here will take you to just current jobs right now in Utah for those titles you see on the screen there. Front-end developer, a web developer, Java, networking, database. So let's just click on front-end developer. That's basically the skills we have at the moment, right, for this class. All right, I'm going to declare tab bankruptcy here for just a minute, get rid of all these stupid open tabs. I stole that line from Chris COYIER. Okay, here we go. So what this landed on, this is actually Google's sort of jobs curation. They curate all these jobs from everywhere. So for example, you got Glassdoor over here on the left, or from talent.com down here, or this one's from LinkedIn or ZipRecruiter, right? You'll see some from monster.com and all the sites, KSL jobs right down here on the left. Ladders, Applicant Pro, Zipia, I never heard of that one. Whole bunch of different ones. So all this is Google's reaching out. It's got their fingers are in Glassdoor and talent.com, and they're just pulling all the data back and sticking it all right here for you to look at, right? So it's kind of cool. And so you can see here the typical pay for this line of work. According to Ladders, it's between 90 and 220, but according to Glassdoor and Payscale, it's between 47 and 100. I would probably trust that more than the Ladders there. I'm not sure what's going on there. This is a specific job though, right now in Lehigh, from this company called Heroic Cybersecurity. Okay, and that was what we looked at, web development, and it's a cybersecurity job. Look what technologies are required. HTML, CSS, Bootstrap, JavaScript. Now they also talk about some JavaScript frameworks like Angular and React, right? And we don't teach those here, and one of the reasons we don't teach them at the school, because in 2 years, it's not going to be that, right? jQuery. We just saw with Bootstrap 5, what did Bootstrap do? They just chopped all jQuery dependency. They're getting out of the business of using jQuery. We don't need it anymore. JavaScript's getting better, the language is improving and evolving, and you don't need a library like jQuery. Now, I don't know Angular and React and Vue well enough to speak too intelligently about them, but I suspect that the same kind of thing's going to happen. The JavaScript language will evolve, and the library will go away. That's probably what will happen. That's usually what happens. As long as you know the raw language, you're always in a good position. If you know the raw language and Angular, yeah, that's definitely better. But if you know Angular but not the raw language, that's a problem, right? Anyway, so there's a job right here at Tesla, right? Front-end developer. You can click on all these and go through and look at what's going on. This has the location and has a little map to it and everything, okay? Now, how do you get to this? We'll talk about that in a minute. Let's just look at one more here. Let's click on that link. Now, this is just web developer versus front-end developer, right? And this can't find this page. Often that means this link here was a specific job. And so rather than changing the link every time, I just left it there because it still takes us to this page, right? And it has all these other jobs, or maybe that job's been filled or whatever. So here we go. Here's that Tesla job again. Here's something at the University of Utah, right? A whole bunch of different things here. Just click on them and look at what you're interested in. So how do you get to this page other than from my PowerPoint here, right? If you go to Google, we already know about Google Fonts, right? Where you can go to Google Fonts and it takes you to this little font page, or Google Docs or Google Drive. Well, there's also Google Jobs. The best way to get there, or a good way to get there, type in the job you're looking for. So front-end developer, and then these two keywords. Thing number one, the word jobs. That must be in there. And then pick a city, state, whatever. Go with Utah. So job title, the word jobs, and the location. And you look down here after all the ads, what do you see? This big blue bar right here. Click on it. And here you are. And this is current. I mean, you'll see some, like this was listed 2 days ago, right? It also tells you it's a 40-minute commute from where I'm sitting right now. So if you're looking at this from home, you'll see how long your commute would be. So let's pick this Tesla one here. That was uploaded 20 days ago. Haven't filled it yet. Junior front-end developer at in Park City, 28 days ago. That's been sitting there for a while, right? Let's look at South Jordan. That's close. 2 days ago. Okay. So there's a lot of cool information here. So the two things we looked at so far, number one is this Payscale.com. I would recommend using the links that I'm providing you in the PowerPoint and in the YouTube description to get there. Because if you go directly to payscale.com, it's messy, right? So use the links I gave you, but use the links to do some research on the job. What's the job like? We're going to look at some more in a minute that show how much people enjoy working in that industry, right? That's kind of cool. So we can click on all these here, Java, networking job, database jobs, but I just figured we look at a couple so you can see how to get to that Google thing, right? So this is the Payscale, that site we've been looking at, okay? If we click on it, it's going to take us to this payscale.com/research. So this page is really cool. I've got a few suggested topics right here on this page on the PowerPoint, but you just come in here and pick one. So what's something you guys are interested in looking at? So C++, C++ developer. So we search for that and it shows software developer. These are the results. Software developer, senior, there's web developer. Let's go with this one. So there's your salary for Visual C and C++, $88,000. And again, these are some of the pieces of data here about it. You can see this title, how much it makes on average. There's a bunch of different pages we can look at here. Different required skills you're going to need. And this one doesn't have a lot of details like some of the other ones did. Let's go back and try, like here's web developer. So average web developer is only 60,000. That's kind of low actually. Lower than I thought it would be. If we look down here though, out of 1,589 people surveyed, the average is 4 stars out of how happy they are with the job. And then 180 people have written reviews on the site here. So you can go in and write a review. I love web developing because, right? And this is the typical format, pros and cons. Most jobs are in Stockholm. They commute easy. What the heck is this? I don't know what's going on there. Let's look at this next one here. I love being able to live near family but work globally. This is like from a specific company here. Yeah, so it looks like the reviews here are more about the specific company. This one looks like it might be just job, like generic, industry generic. But they're fun to read through some of those and just take a peek and see what's going on there. Okay, you can see that, again, it's got a high rating for job satisfaction. Somewhere on this site, and I don't remember where it is, you can actually see ranking by different things, like the benefits are good or the work environment's good, like just different things, what are good and negative things about it. And again, here's a list of skills that you need. Notice this, SQL, that's everywhere. But HTML5, MySQL, HTML, CSS, PHP, that's all web stuff that you need to take for sure. I mean, it's not going to hurt you to know jQuery for sure, but yeah, and you're right. A lot of times the company will just have legacy code that's got jQuery in it, right? So yeah, you'll definitely, it's useful to know stuff like that. But the real thing I was getting at a minute ago with the libraries, right? They just come and go. I mean, you know, you guys are still kind of new to this, but jQuery was huge. I mean, it was Michael Jackson in the 80s huge. Right? The Beatles in the 60s, huge. It was huge, right? And now it's nothing, you know? It's going away, yeah. So, but it doesn't hurt, you know? A good example of that, and we're gonna see a little video here in a minute that shows this. It's pretty cool. But in the late 70s, there was a language, 2 languages, COBOL and Fortran. They were huge. COBOL, I'm pretty sure it's COBOL that the banking software was built on. But the banking software, what they did, they used COBOL, and it took until like 10 or 15 years ago. This is from the 70s now. It took until about 10 or 15 years ago before they sort of got away from that software, right? So there were guys that I knew that were COBOL programmers that were making six figures because he was the only guy on the planet that knew how to speak the language, right? I mean, there's like a handful of people, and the bank's like, yes, we need a COBOL person. Get in here. We'll give you whatever you want, right? Because that's all we have for our software. If you've looked at the software, maybe take a peek over your doctor's shoulder next time you're at the doctor or something. The software they use, it's that old blue DOS looking screen with the yellow borders or whatever, just old stuff. And it's just because that's the software that is just, it's everywhere. And how do you update it, right? You have to completely revamp everything. It's kind of a big deal. So it's good to know older languages too, for sure. Because if you have a jQuery site, I mean, especially if you download the jQuery yourself and it's sitting on your server, even if jQuery just ceases to exist, you still have the code and your site will still work just fine. I mean, it's still solid code, right? Well, solid code's arguable, but it's still working code. We'll go with that. All right, anyway. So Ruby on Rails, this is a good example of what I was just talking about knowing older technologies. Ruby on Rails was huge when it first came out. Everybody was talking about this new Ruby on Rails things. What is that? What is it all about? Well, Ruby is a programming language. Then there's this on Rails paradigm, there was more than just Ruby on Rails. There was whatever else on Rails, other things on Rails. But Ruby is a programming language. Ruby on Rails is a programming language with a whole bunch of, it's Ruby with a bunch of libraries. They call them gems, but they're little plugins basically. And what they do is they speed up development, right? So you can build something pretty dang quick with Ruby on Rails. But you're stuck with what we call an opinionated language, where Ruby is very opinionated, right? It has to be the way I say or else. Take a language like JavaScript, it's a little more loosey-goosey, right? It's not as opinionated as other languages. So the trade-offs are super fast development, but you're stuck in a really strict language, or maybe even arguably better development, but it's slower, right? So Ruby on Rails took off. And we're talking about it for a specific reason, I'll tell you in a second, but let's look at some of the sites that use it. 50 best Ruby on Rails sites. Number 1, Airbnb. You guys have heard of that one, right? Groupon. We know this one. GitHub. Couchsurfing, I've never heard of that site. Shopify. You guys know about Shopify? If you have anything like something that you make or want to sell as a product, get a Shopify site. It's like $30 a month for the lower levels. They have higher levels, but you can sell stuff on Shopify without having to have a merchant account or anything like that. And if you make whatever your product is, if you can sell $30 worth of stuff every month, which isn't that hard, you're breaking even at least. I used to use that for my Stone Cold Magic site. The only reason I switched is because a buddy of mine has his own company that builds shopping cart systems specifically for magicians. And so it was tailor-made for what I'm doing. That's why I switched. But other than that, I'd still be using Shopify. I love it. So Ask.fm, I've heard of that briefly. I don't know too much about it. Dribble is a CMS. It's a content management system. Twitter, Ruby on Rails. Etsy, you guys know that one. And we're going to start getting to some obscure ones that I haven't heard of, but Hulu is a huge one, obviously. Kickstarter is Ruby on Rails. So think about this, like Twitter here. I don't see Twitter disappearing anytime soon. I don't see Hulu disappearing anytime soon. They were built on Ruby on Rails. Well, what are they going to do? Rebuild the site completely and get rid of Ruby on Rails? No, they need Ruby developers, right? They definitely will need that. Maybe, down the road, a couple decades from now, and the technology is so different, they are going to have to completely scrap it and rebuild it, right? I'm doing that with that Inside Deception site that I build. We're completely rebuilding that thing from the ground up because the technology we're using is getting old. That happens. Why I'm bringing all this up, though, is because you cannot do Ruby if you don't have those three skills right there. HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. You have to know that. You have to have what you learned in this class to be able to do Ruby on Rails. The median salary right now is 74 according to this, and it's up to 77 right now, right? Because Hulu has on staff Ruby developers, right? Twitter has on staff Ruby developers. So I bring it up. We don't teach this at the school here, but as far as I know anyway, But I bring it up because it's another thing where if you're interested in it, well, you have to have the foundation that you got from this class. Remember my question, is CSIS 1430 useful? Yeah, very much, right? So keeping up with the current technology, how the heck do you do that? Right? I mean, we just talked about right in the middle of this semester when we were recording the Bootstrap videos the other day, brand new version of Bootstrap comes out. Right in the middle of us learning 4.5. And by the way, the reason we were recording the videos in this semester is because I wanted to replace my old videos from last semester. Right? And here I am making the new videos because the technology is changing, and it changed again in the middle of me making them. This stuff changes all the time. Right? jQuery is not even a thing anymore for Bootstrap, as we mentioned a minute ago. That's a big change. And I think that's also sort of another nail in the jQuery's coffin. I think that's going to die pretty soon. We're going to look at something in a minute that was Flash based. You guys remember Flash? That's you might, yeah, you remember it? Yeah. You guys are right about the age though, maybe another year or two of me asking that question and people are going to go, no, what's Flash? Right? That's how it went from this, it went from this humongous thing to this nothing thing, right? But the technology changes so fast and we have to stay on top of it. So how do we do that? This is my advice to you. Find a thought leader in the industry that you like. Find one or two of them. My favorite is Chris COYIER, hands down. He's my favorite guy. So I follow him everywhere. Twitter, YouTube, his blog, his website, LinkedIn, everywhere. Everywhere that he's got an account, I'm following it, his newsletter. So pick a couple people that you like. I'm going to show you how to find some people in a second here. But he's the guy behind CSStricks.com, which we visited many times in this class. He's also the guy I told you a second ago that I stole that tab bankruptcy line, which I'm going to declare again right now because I've got too many tabs open. So here he is, CSS Tricks. This is his site. We've been here many times. You guys should recognize this. We mostly come here for the almanac, right? We come here and it's all the selectors. We've looked at these selectors and the properties here. We've also searched for some box shadow things, but he has a lot of videos. Click on here. And he has a video here called Scroll to Zoom. So like this, scrolling in and out to Zoom that I'm doing there. I'm not sure what exactly that video is about, but I imagine it's something about that. Tells you a little bit about it. You can read an article that's attached to it. He makes a lot of the videos himself. It's actually him in the video, but not always. He has a lot of great articles here. So here's an article using CSS custom properties to adjust variable font weights in dark mode. What is that all about? I don't even know. But this is a guest author writing this post here, Greg Gibson. He's also a pretty dang good banjo player. So if you go to his videos, I'll show you real quick. All of his videos, when you start it, it's him playing the banjo. There we go. That's him on the banjo.
Hey everybody, this is Chris from CSS Tricks. I wanted to do a...
There you go, there's his personality in a nutshell right there, man. I love watching his videos. But these videos, these are like specific techniques or ideas or whatever he'll explore. Sometimes he'll take something that he's not good at, and in fact, he had a video that's called Let's Suck at Git Together, right? It was about him just trying to figure out how Git works, right? And so he made a video where he just stumbled his way through it. It was pretty cool. All right, so Chris COYIER, he's also the guy behind CodePen, which you may or may not be familiar with here. So CodePen is a website where you can see how to build stuff. Like this right here is a pure CSS looking weird thing down here, right? So you click on here, and this is all CSS animation right here. And so you can write your HTML here, write your CSS here, write your JavaScript here, and it just renders it live down below. It's a good place for just quickly testing something out and not having to worry about uploading it to your server or whatever. Just come in here and do it real time and just try out 1 or 2 lines of code, see if it works, and then put it in your actual project if you want. If you're familiar with JS Fiddle, it's kind of like that site. It's the same thing where you just go in and just fiddle around. But there's some really cool stuff in here. And Chris has tutorials about it all over the place too. He's also the guy behind FitVids, which we used in that Inside Deception project. Remember that? This thing right here, where it helps our videos be responsive. So he's the guy behind this. It makes responsive videos, and then this is where you'll want to go though to see how you can find other thought leaders besides Chris. Go to Shop Talk Show. It's his podcast. He just recently changed this because this site didn't look like this not that long ago, and so it looks like it's all an old console back from the 80s. It's pretty cool, but it has 442 episodes on it, and they're categorized right down here: CSS, career advice, WordPress. Here's some GitHub stuff, jQuery. That'd be fun to watch after what we've been talking about. But just pick one. Let's go with CSS here real quick. And you'll see this WordPress versus Jamstack follow-up. What is Jamstack? You guys are still new to this. I don't know what that is, but you're still new to like what WordPress is, right? So there's lots of different things though. Let's go like the browser show. What is that? Or, oh, this is great. I didn't know this was here. You need to watch this right now. An event apart, subgrid, grid, Chrome engine, and more with Eric Meyer. You guys know that name? He is the godfather of writing good CSS. In the early days, if you wanted to learn about CSS, before you could watch a YouTube video, right? That wasn't a thing. You get any book he wrote. You read every blog post he made. He was the guy that you went to for CSS. So he has Eric on his podcast, man. That's just cool. So whoever this, I don't know who Miriam Suzanne is, but it's Miriam Suzanne on SAS and CSS. I guarantee you Miriam Suzanne is a thought leader in the industry. So click on the podcast, see if you like it, if you like listening to her. But she may be interested, maybe someone you're interested in listening to. Jen Simmons on browser features, right? He has a lot of thought leaders on here that are very, very good to get familiar with. And you listen to them and then link off to their Twitter page or their Facebook page or their whatever page, right? And follow them over there. So this will help you build your arsenal of thought leaders. What you don't want to do is have like 50 of them, right? Find a couple that you really like and then follow them everywhere, okay? So this next thing I want to show you is, it's actually video here, which I'll probably have to edit out of the video that I'm recording right now. So there'll just be a link in the description. But it's a video that shows the popularity of programming languages over time. So this video here, there's a bunch of different versions of it. There's one that goes from 1960s to up through to last year. The one I chose that we're going to look at here goes from 1990 to right now, because it goes all the way up to 2020. So this is pretty cool though. This channel is really fun too. So look at the top 5 languages: Python, JavaScript, Java, and you're going to see in the next couple of years Java is going to keep moving down, I'm pretty sure, because JavaScript and Python are just taking over. C#'s still up there, and then PHP. Those are the top 5 languages. There's Fortran still hanging on from the 60s, man. That's an old language. So, but the top 5, JavaScript and PHP, are both web technologies. So is C#. C# can be used for applications on your computer, but C# usually is going along with .NET. And .NET is web, right? And then Python, again, that's more server stuff, but definitely web, right? There's web components there. The only thing that's not really a web thing is Java, which is why it's disappearing, right? Which is funny because Java originally, the big deal with Java was applets. You guys ever look at applets in your 1400 class? You'd make a program, basically, just a full-blown program, and then you'd embed it into a website. That's what applets were. Nowadays, if you're doing that, you're writing raw JavaScript. You're not doing Java at all. So it's pretty cool to see, and I've got a couple more links if you look in the video description of a couple other videos like this that show you for a longer history and that are from some other channels. Also, this one, it does it with everything, not just programming languages. It has like types of music, genres of music over the years, and it has the same type of video. They're pretty fun to watch. So the reason I bring this up though is because the majority of the top 5 languages are web programming. And you'll notice here, JavaScript, it doesn't say anything about HTML, CSS. It goes without saying. When you're looking at JavaScript, it's 100% implied also HTML and CSS. You cannot do JavaScript without that, right? Okay, so here's some resources for you. And these are all links in the PowerPoint, in the PDF, and the YouTube description. Glassdoor, which is just, it's sort of like Monster or Dice.com, all these sites that curate jobs, it's a recruiter, right, employment site. Indeed, Payscale, we've been looking at today already, Monster. And then Snag a Job is another one. And then we have these two here, 6 ways to find your next job and job seeking advice. Those are both articles that are interesting, that could be useful. Now, a minute ago, I mentioned to you guys this thing with Flash, right? Flash came and went. It was a flash in the pan, right? Just came and went. There's this website called Homestar Runner, which just as a rite of passage to becoming a nerd, you have to know about Homestar Runner. It's an older site from the early 2000s or so, and it was 100% Flash based. Now, I remember when Flash was first a thing. This was the early days of the web, and it was like looking at, if you watch cartoons on TV or something, it was like looking at really well done animation, all done with a software on your computer that you could just do and then stick it on a website. And the first one I saw was 2 stick figures that were fighting each other like ninja style. It was the coolest thing ever. You could probably find it on YouTube. I was blown away. I was like, what the heck is this, man? It was all on the web. It was crazy. Well, this website was all Flash based. And so if you go here now, it's a website that's based on a children's book that these guys wrote years ago. But you see right there, the Flash player is broken now. So everything, you have to go to YouTube now to see all this stuff. But it is hilarious. The site is amazing and funny and just clever and cool. And so the problem is when I show it to you, you're going to become addicted to it. It's not as, the experience is a little different when you're doing it on YouTube rather than through their website. It's not as exciting, but they have a playlist here, I'm sure, that's going to be emails. Let's see if we can find it. Yeah, strong bad emails right there. That's the one you want to watch every one of those videos, man, right there. So what this was, the people would write real emails to this website, and then the cartoon characters would reply. And the other thing was, though, the technology that, like you can see his computer in the screen there, it's this old DOS machine, but he always thinks he's like at the cutting edge with all the technology, and he's really got this ridiculous old technology. But here's like a short one it's just 51 seconds, give you a sense of what we're talking about here. Anyway, a whole bunch of these videos are crazy. Very fun stuff to watch. So you have to know about this to be a nerd. It's just part of the deal. But that aside, I really wanted to show you because this was a situation where Flash was, as far as everybody knew, Flash was the new thing. That was it. Everything was going to be Flash. In fact, a company I used to work for, the guy built all the websites in Flash. The entire websites were Flash. If you did not have Flash, you could not view the content of our websites, which is a horrible idea to require a plugin in the first place to view a site, right? But now when Flash is gone, goodbye every single website that we have. So, but that's also just a fun site. Last up here, this is a list of my favorite YouTubers. By far, my favorite YouTubers. We're gonna look at each one for just a split second here, okay? These are not in any particular order because they're all have a different purpose. But the first one on the list is the 8-Bit Guy. I love this channel. And mostly because he's my age and he looks at the retro stuff, right? And so it appeals to me a lot more than maybe it would to you guys. But he restores old computers. He has a basically a museum in his own house. He writes computer games that are for DOS machines and things like this, older machines, and a whole bunch of stuff. But this, like this Apple II here, you should see what this thing looked like before he restored it. He took it apart and it was full of enough fur balls to make an entire cat. I mean, it's unbelievable, man. It was just nasty. But he retro brights them, turns them back to their original color, everything. It's really cool to watch. This is just more for fun. This is like me watching TV, right? It's not I mean, it's educational because there's a lot of cool stuff about history in there, but it's just more of a fun thing. But some of the other ones more for learning, like relative or that are pertinent to our industry right now. Kevin Powell, this guy's really good. He does mostly, in fact, it might even be 100% CSS tutorials, right? So just look at, pick a subject here, like, well, here's one, a playlist for Flexbox, a playlist for the grid, keeping it dry. You familiar with that term, dry? Don't repeat yourself. Then there's a bunch of different things like how to create a nav bar, and this is not using Bootstrap, it's just making a nav bar, right? So that might be useful for your projects coming up. CSS transitions, before and after explained in more depth, right? A whole bunch of really good tutorials on here. The other one is Colt Steele, and I already told you he's my favorite. I mentioned him the other day. He's my favorite YouTube tutorial guy at the moment. There's something about his demeanor, the way he teaches things, the way he explains things, the way he breaks them down. Really, really good stuff here. And he's got a bunch of stuff here. He's got Bootstrap videos and JavaScript videos and CSS videos and all kinds of stuff, right? We click here. Here's a video on CSS units, right? Media queries. Looking at React. That's one of those things that it's one of those libraries that we were mentioning a minute ago. So there's a 2-hour video that'll give you a good sense of what it is. And I guarantee you, this will be a great video. It'll be well worth the 2 hours to watch. So lots of good videos from Colt Steele. Then Code with Anya. She's one I recently discovered. I like her stuff, but there's a couple of caveats. Time to clear some tabs again. So what she does, let's look here in videos. So she makes a lot of games, not like full-blown, like fully graphic games, but she'll make like a Flappy Bird clone here, right? Or she did 2048, or she made the dinosaur game, or she made a Pac-Man right here, Candy Crush. She did a Tetris, Space Invaders, a bunch of different things. When you look at it, it's not like the full-blown Space Invaders that you're used to, right? But it's mostly functioning or working on the functionality of the game. And she uses 100% raw HTML, raw CSS, and raw JavaScript, and that is all. No libraries. She doesn't even use the canvas tag, which we haven't talked about in this class. But there's the HTML tag called canvas, which when you put it in your web page, it allows you to write code with JavaScript that can draw on the canvas. Like you can draw pictures and all kinds of stuff with it. And a lot of times when you see games, that's how they're done. She doesn't do that though. She uses raw HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Now, she's more of a, I'm just going to write the code and kind of talk about a couple things as I'm writing it. She's not spending a lot of time teaching a whole lot, but she's showing you a lot of fun stuff and it's fun to watch. But she also has teaching videos too. Like this one right here is a 5-minute video on the for each method inside of JavaScript, right? Or here is a like build your own Frogger in 20 minutes, right? So then she'll have something like, let's find another one here, how to use contains method in 5 minutes. So she has a lot of cool tutorials like that. But my favorite things are just to watch her build these programs real quick. It's pretty fun. And then the last one is the coding train. And this guy is just super fun to watch. So the ones I like to watch from him, if we go to the playlist here, actually, sorry, go back, we'll just do a search. So search for Coding Challenge. Yeah, he's humongous. He teaches at a university back east. I can't remember which one. So here's a coding challenge. There's actually a coding challenge playlist right there. And so what he has done, scroll down, see how many. So he's done 218 coding challenges, and he does a whole bunch of other videos. He has full-blown tutorials in here, everything. Like learn this language from the ground up kind of thing. But what the coding challenge was, like look at number 3 here, the snake game. I'm going to build the snake game in 30 minutes. And he sets a timer and he does it live, right? It's really cool. Now, I don't think any of them does he use raw JavaScript. He uses Canvas and that method I was talking about a second ago. And he also uses a JavaScript library, right? It's one that I think he's part of the creator of it, or he's somehow involved. It's p5.js is what it's called. But it's a library that's, again, it's short and it makes it to where you can write things more quickly and shorthands things, right? But he also there's another one that's a Java library where it's the same idea, where it's quick shorthand stuff. But he made the snake in 30 minutes. He made Space Invaders in 40 minutes there. And again, it's not fully graphically fleshed out. It's just like raw little blocks and stuff because he's focusing on the functionality, right? And some of these weren't that interesting to me, but he has some stuff in here with artificial intelligence and machine learning. And the Mandelbrot said, if you're into recursive stuff, traveling salesperson is a problem you should be getting familiar with pretty soon in your career when you get to 2420. Diastic machine, this actually inspired me to make this exact thing in my PHP class. We actually do this in my PHP class. But lots of different things here. He made a clappy bird, which is a Flappy Bird that responds to clap. And every time you clap, the bird would move, instead of tapping. So he made an asteroids here. There's all kinds of really cool stuff in here. Just tons and tons of them. Somewhere in there is a Pong. And there's a second snake where he redid it. There's the Pong right there. He redid snake. Here's some searches that are algorithms you're not familiar with yet, but it's breadth first search. You'll learn about that in 2420. So it's like really advanced stuff and really simple stuff all rolled up in there. Here's a Minesweeper, Frogger, part 1, 2, and 3. I've watched that Frogger one like 3 times. I love that one. Really fun to watch. So tons and tons and tons and tons of stuff. Those channels, though, I watch more than anything. In fact, I think I'm going to watch that Frogger one again tonight. I love that one. So these are guys like Kevin Powell, and Colt Steele, I would put them in the category as thought leaders. They're sort of at the edge. When new stuff comes out, they're right on it with new videos and tutorials and stuff like that. And then Anya, I don't know that she's necessarily doing like this brand new cutting edge stuff, but she does a lot of fun stuff. Same with the Coding Train guy, Daniel. So they're a lot of fun to watch. So the goal today, learn how to find jobs online. Hopefully that little tip of going to Google, typing in the job you're looking for, the word jobs, and then the state or the location. Do that and it'll bring you to that curated Google site. How to research, right? That's that payscale.com website. All the links I've given you here. Go there and look up the job you're looking for. See what the salary is, so when you go in to negotiate your salary, you have some sort of experience and you understand it. How do you stay current? Hopefully you've seen a bunch of things there, some of those YouTube channels I follow. Go find your own. You might like the ones I like, you might not. Go find your own and get what works for you the best. So hopefully that will set you up for understanding and appreciating how important this class has been for moving forward. Any questions about anything we looked at here?